When I was first called to cleanse a home in a remote village, I thought it would be a routine ritual. I had performed countless exorcisms and purification ceremonies over the years, but something about this one felt different. The family's distress was palpable in their urgent phone call. The youngest daughter, May, had been acting strangely since they bought her a doll from a street vendor. The mother's voice trembled as she described the situation. "She talks to it," she whispered. "At first we thought it was just her imagination, but now it answers back." The moment I arrived, I sensed something was wrong. The village was shrouded in an eerie silence, the kind that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The house itself seemed to repel me, its aura thick and oppressive, the kind of atmosphere that clings to your skin and refuses to let go. The air was heavy with a damp, musty scent, and the trees around the house seemed to lean in as if watching me with their leafy branches. Inside, the doll sat on a chair in the corner of the living room, its glassy eyes reflecting the dim light. It was beautiful in a haunting way, dressed in a delicate lace gown with hair that looked eerily real. The doll seemed to be watching me, its gaze following my every move. May sat opposite it, her tiny frame dwarfed by the shadows of the room. She whispered words I couldn't understand, her lips moving rapidly as if in conversation. When I tried to approach the doll, May screamed, "Don't! She doesn't like to be touched." Her voice wasn't her own anymore. It was deeper, guttural, and filled with malice. I started the ritual immediately. I lit the sage and began chanting, the ancient words rolling off my tongue with practiced ease. But the doll seemed to resist. The smoke didn't linger around it. Instead, it dissipated as if the air itself was rejecting my efforts. The room grew colder, and the oppressive energy pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then the doll began to rock back and forth on its own. The temperature in the room plummeted, and I could see my breath fogging up in front of me. The oppressive energy was almost tangible, a dark force that seemed to push against me from all sides. May's laughter filled the room, sharp, mocking, and inhuman. "You think you can get rid of me?" She snarled, her eyes black as coal. The entity wasn't just attached to the doll, it had latched onto May. The realization hit me like a blow. I wasn't just fighting to cleanse the house, I was fighting for the little girl's soul. The ritual intensified. I pressed the talisman against May's forehead, chanting louder and louder. She screamed, her body convulsing violently, but I didn't stop. The doll's eyes shattered with a deafening crack and the room went silent. The oppressive energy seemed to waver, but it didn't dissipate entirely. May collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The family thanked me, their relief palpable, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the entity wasn't entirely gone. As I left, I glanced back at the trash bin where the shattered doll lay. Its broken face seemed to smile at me, a sinister reminder that some things never truly leave. The drive back to my home was heavy with foreboding. I couldn't shake the image of the doll's broken face, its eyes shattered but still somehow watching me. I knew I hadn't been completely successful, that some part of the entity remained, lurking in the shadows. Over the next few days, I received more calls from the family. May's behavior had improved, but there were still moments of unexplained fear and strange occurrences. The doll's presence lingered, a dark cloud that refused to lift. I decided to return to the village, determined to finish what I had started. The second visit was even more intense. The house seemed even more oppressive, the air thick with a malevolent energy. I performed a more powerful ritual, using every tool at my disposal. The doll's remnants were burned, and the ashes scattered in a nearby river, a ritual meant to banish the entity for good. The final night was the most intense. The entity, feeling its power waning, fought back with all its strength. The house shook, and the air was filled with the sound of whispers and screams. May was in the center of it all, her body a battleground between the entity and my efforts to free her. The ritual reached its peak, and the entity's presence grew almost unbearable. I could feel it clawing at my mind, trying to break me, but I held firm, chanting with all the strength I had. The air crackled with energy, and a blinding light filled the room. When it faded, the oppressive energy was gone, and the house felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. May looked at me with her own eyes, her voice small but clear. "Thank you," she said, her smile genuine. The family embraced me, their gratitude overwhelming. I knew I had done what I could, but the experience left me shaken. Some battles are never truly over, and the memory of that doll's broken face would stay with me for a long time. The villagers called it the Whispering Forest, a place so steeped in fear and mystery that few dared to enter. For decades, people had gone missing there, and those who returned were never the same. They spoke of strange whispers and shadowy figures, their eyes haunted by unseen horrors. When I was asked to investigate, I hesitated. Even as a shaman, I knew some places were better left alone. But when a young man named Darren disappeared, his mother begged me to help. "He's my only son," she sobbed, clutching my hands tightly. "Please, bring him back." I looked into her tear-streaked face and saw the desperation and hope in her eyes. I couldn't turn her away. With a heavy heart, I agreed to enter the forest and find her son. I entered the forest at dawn carrying my staff and protective charms. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The trees were unnaturally tall, their branches intertwining to block out the sunlight, casting the forest in a perpetual twilight. The whispers began almost immediately, soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. They weren't just sounds. They felt like thoughts invading my mind, urging me to turn back. "Go back," they whispered. "You don't belong here." I shook my head, trying to clear the intrusive voices, but they persisted, growing louder and more insistent. I pressed on, determined to find Darren. As I ventured deeper, I found Darren's belongings scattered along a narrow trail, a torn jacket, a shoe, and finally, his phone. It was still recording. My hands trembled as I played the video. The screen showed Darren, wide-eyed and trembling, whispering, "It's in the trees. It's watching me." A shadow passed behind him, and the video ended abruptly. A chill ran down my spine. The forest was alive with malevolent energy, and it was clear that Darren had faced something beyond his comprehension. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to form words now, calling my name. "Come to me, shaman," they whispered. "Join us." I followed the sound to a clearing where a massive ancient tree stood. Its bark was covered in strange symbols, and at its base lay Darren, pale and lifeless. His face was frozen in an expression of sheer terror. The air around me was thick with a palpable sense of dread. I began the ritual to release Darren's spirit, but the forest fought back. The whispers turned into screams, and the ground beneath me trembled. The tree's roots moved, snaking toward me like living creatures. A face appeared in the bark, twisted, angry, and full of malice. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "Leave!" it growled, its voice resonating deep within my chest. "Or you'll join him." My heart pounded, but I held my ground. I chanted louder, pouring all my energy into the talisman in my hand. It burned hot, and the face in the tree let out a deafening roar before disappearing. The whispers ceased, and the forest grew still. I carried Darren's body back to his mother, but the victory felt hollow. The forest had claimed too many lives, and I knew it wasn't finished. As I walked through the village, the villagers watched me with a mix of relief and fear. They knew the forest was a place of darkness, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred. The mother's tears of gratitude were bittersweet. She thanked me, her voice breaking with emotion. "Thank you, shaman. You brought him home." But the weight of the forest's malevolence still lingered. Its whispers still echoed in my dreams, a chilling reminder that some places are beyond saving. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was still watching me. The whispers returned in my dreams, haunting me with their insistent, malevolent presence. I began to see shadows moving at the edge of my vision, and the air around me felt heavy with unseen forces. I realized that the forest's influence was far from over. It had marked me, and I knew that I would never be the same. The whispering forest had left its imprint on my soul, a dark stain that would never fully fade. Years later, I still hear the whispers. They are softer now, but they never truly go away. The forest remains a place of mystery and fear, and I have warned others to stay away. But the memory of Darren and the malevolent presence that claimed him will always be with me, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks in the world. The whispering forest may have released Darren's spirit, but it has claimed a part of me. And I know that somewhere in the depths of that ancient twisted wood, the whispers continue to call, waiting for their next victim. Her name was Alina, a fellow shaman renowned for her healing abilities. People traveled from far and wide to seek her help. But when her demeanor changed, when her once gentle voice turned sharp and her ceremonies became dangerous, I was called to intervene. When I arrived at her home, Alina greeted me with a cold smile. "I don't need your help," she said, her voice dripping with venom. But her eyes told a different story. They were dark, sunken, and filled with fear. Her family explained that she had been performing a ritual when something went wrong. "She's not herself," her sister whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, save her." I confronted Alina, demanding to know what had happened. She laughed, a chilling, hollow sound. "You think you're stronger than me?" she taunted. "You have no idea what I've seen." The tension in the room was palpable. Alina's eyes flashed with a mix of defiance and terror. "It started with a simple ritual," she began, her voice wavering. "I wanted to heal more, to reach deeper. But something went wrong." Her family watched from the sidelines, their faces etched with worry and fear. I could see the strain in their eyes, the weight of their helplessness. I knew I had to act fast. The ritual began, and Alina fought me every step of the way. She screamed, her voice echoing unnaturally, and objects in the room flew through the air. The energy in the room was oppressive, a swirling vortex of anger and fear. I pressed my talisman to her chest, chanting prayers to banish the entity. "Stop!" Alina shouted, her voice a mix of desperation and defiance. "You can't. It's too late." But I didn't waver. I knew the stakes were too high. The room grew colder, and the air crackled with energy. Alina's body went rigid, and a deep, otherworldly voice spoke through her. "She called me," it said. "She wanted power, and I gave it to her." Tears streamed down Alina's face as she whispered, "I didn't mean to." The entity's hold on her was strong, but I didn't give up. With one final powerful chant, a blinding light filled the room, and Alina collapsed. The air grew still, and I knew the entity was gone. Alina recovered, but she was never the same. She gave up her practice, haunted by the consequences of her ambition. Her family watched over her with a mix of relief and lingering fear. They knew she had been saved, but the experience had left an indelible mark. I sat with her later, in the quiet of the evening. "Why did you call it?" I asked, my voice gentle but firm. Alina looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and sorrow. "I wanted to be more than I was," she admitted. "I wanted to heal the unhealable, to reach the unreachable. But I didn't realize the cost." We sat in silence for a while, the weight of her words hanging between us. "You're not alone," I said finally. "Many have walked this path, driven by ambition and the desire to do more. But the price is often too high." Alina nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "I know now," she whispered. "I know." I left her home, the air lighter but the weight of the experience still heavy on my shoulders. As I walked through the village, I couldn't help but wonder how many more would make the same mistake. How many more would be drawn to the darkness thinking they could control it, only to be consumed by it. The whispering forest, the haunted doll, and now Alina, all reminders of the thin line between power and destruction. And I, a shaman who had seen it all, knew that the battle against the unseen forces was far from over. Thank you for watching this chilling story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying tales. Explore other genres of horror and scary stories on this channel. There's something to keep every horror fan awake at night. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload.